47th annual meeting. I'm actually old enough to have been at the first one if I was a client of yours. It's been an amazing year at Five Counties Children's Center as our staff continue to help children and youth with physical, developmental, and communication needs. In fact, the past year has been a record-breaking one, with staff providing support to more than 6,200 children, an approximate 10% increase from the previous year. This is a huge credit to Five County staff who go above and beyond every day to build abilities for life in our kids, clients, and families. When we talk about amazing, that's also an appropriate segue as we introduce our keynote speaker, Adam White. It's hard to imagine anyone more fitting to deliver our 2023 keynote address than Adam White. As an inspirational and motivational individual, Adam has been a valued member of Five Counties throughout his entire life. As a client of Five Counties, a teammate and coach of the Five Counties Blazers sledge hockey team, a Five Counties volunteer, and for the past 10 years, fulfilling many roles as a valued member of Five Counties Board of Directors. His passion for helping youth achieve their fullest potential reaches beyond Five Counties. Adam has achieved success in his career as an educator, an educational consultant, a recipient of the Everyday Hero Award from the Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, and Clarington Catholic District School Board. Now that's an acronym we can look away at. Adam is a true example of commitment and compassion and is living proof through hard work, determination, and an unwavering sense of self one can achieve, or in Adam's case, exceed at anything. Please join me in welcoming Adam White.
I guess I'm in the right spot for that.
Why didn't we practice this?
I've never had to do this. Yeah. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right. Yep. Thank you. Wow. That happens every once in a while, no matter how old you are. I suppose staff at Five Counties have helped me with that over the years of how to relax. So I'll get there. Just give me a moment. It's too kind of an introduction, but I do appreciate that. Thank you very much, Christy. I want to thank Christy and Scott, the whole executive, the board, for the invitation to join you today and speak. Five Counties is a place that's near and dear to my heart, and I am very honored to be able to reflect on some of my experiences and perhaps use some of those experiences to talk about what the future might hold, where we could go. So I want to start by just talking about my role over the last 5 years. For the last 5 years, I've worked in our school board as the French consultant. And a lot of that work has really involved convincing teachers to shift the mindset of how they approach teaching French. What do students need French for? And if the answer is it's just to do well in the classroom, we're not reaching far enough. Kids need to have that language skill for things like marvelous trips to places like Paris and Quebec City and other places in the world. Kids might use those skills in work someday on collaborative teams, social events, such as meals out with friends. Who knows whom they might meet and develop relationships and friendships with. So we're really developing those French skills for things that we're never going to see in the classroom for years down the road. And it occurred to me that Five Counties does much the same thing. Because while it is so important to help a kid stretch a little bit further, or say some new sounds, or say the sounds a little bit clearer, write their name, take a few more steps, wheel a bit further independently, those are all important. But the real measure isn't what happens in the center, within the walls of the center. The real measure is something that staff here may never see or experience. It's what's going to happen years from now, maybe 5 or 10 or 40 years from now, when that child has grown up and is part of society. And so we keep that in mind. And I reflected on the idea of building abilities for life. And what does that mean? It's a great line. And I remember 2019, it was in January, some of us were gathered in this gym to do our visioning day together with Lego blocks. It was quite fun. And I got a chance to hear from parents and board members and other staff as to what their vision of 5 counties really was through these Lego designs. And we came to building abilities for life, which I think is one of the best visions we could have. But I want to tell you, it's not only a vision, like I feel like that Just for Men commercial, it's not only a vision, it's the truth. Because what 5 counties has done for me from the age of 9 months to today has truly been building abilities for life. So if you're patient with me, I want to walk through some of that journey with you and help you maybe to reflect on your own work that you're doing today, whether you're a board member or a staff member or manager, whatever your role is in the center, you're doing work that helps build abilities for life. And I am appreciative of that on behalf of all clients who've ever been here and who continue to come. So we'll move, thank you. So I want to tell you a story about, and with due respect to my fellow board members, whom I think very highly of, and for the many other experiences I've had at 5 counties, my favorite experience as a volunteer at 5 counties was the Teen Transitions program that ran roughly 10 years ago, within a window of about 6 or 7 years. We partnered with Fleming College to have teens from about the age of 15 to 18 or 19 come and live at Fleming College in residence for a week. And it was a partnership with all of the departments, largely social work, recreation, but OTs were a big part of that as well. Physiotherapists were a big part of it. The planning that went on ahead of time was a big part of it. And at this program, the youth learned all of the I mean, they already had some, but they got to practice many of the skills that they would need for independent living when they're ready to move out of their home. Things like organizing grocery shopping and cooking for the week, things like cleaning, things like even choosing your own clothes when the personal support worker comes, and scheduling your own shower times and support times like that. It's all things that they needed to do in order to live independently for a week, not to mention the social time that went into that. I mentioned the OTs, and one of my favorite moments during that week, and this is to take nothing away from any of the staff that were involved, but one of my favorite moments was when the OTs would come with these amazing objects and creative tools that the participants got to use to do things like simply pick up objects or put on their socks or the things of daily living that many of us take for granted. And it occurred to me in that moment that OT was the job I never knew I wanted, but I did, because if I wasn't a teacher, I just admired the creativity and flexibility that those OTs had with our participants. And that goes as well to the other staff that were involved. It was just one of those light bulb moments for me about how magical the work really can be. So every year I was invited to give a talk to the participants, and that's how I kind of got roped in or invited at the time. And I couldn't leave. They were stuck with me. I think Elizabeth probably wanted me to leave at some point, but they were stuck with me, and I enjoyed so much being there. And I would give a talk, and it was about building confidence, setting goals, and achieving those goals, and how to do that. And I would always finish with this image, and it was an image that explained how, when Michelangelo looked at a rock, Michelangelo didn't see the rock for what the rock was. Michelangelo saw the art of the sculpture within that rock. And I tried to use that as a metaphor with our participants to say something like, within each of you is that work of art. your goal of your life is to bring out that work of art a little more each day and accept the people around you who are those people that'll help you bring out that art. And learn about yourself so that you can become that person you're meant to be and do with your life all that you can. And I would finish the talk with that. It was a really neat way to kind of build that foundation for the week and hopefully set the participants on the path of knowing what they could accomplish. Thank you, Bill, for this. On to the next one. One of my favorite developments over my years on the board, and many of you are familiar with this, I'm sure, but for the board members especially, I just wanted to touch on this. And it's the research done by Rosenbaum and Garter at CanChild around the 6 F words in child development. And I just think it's such a brilliant approach to how we need to help kids to become fully who they can be. We're talking about function and family and fitness, friends, fun, and future. And the shift there is away from that medical model of having to fix something toward the model of having a full human there that we're building up. And I thought about this in terms of preparing for today, and I realized 5 counties has been living this model long before the words were ever coined. We just didn't know to call it that. And I want to walk you through some of those ways now. So the first one, and the next slide just shows a whole checklist that families can use to identify these things, both within the treatment setting, but also in community settings or in school settings. And to be quite frank, I would love to see this come into our schools way more often. I think we would do so well by our students to remember these ideas. As an aside. First one I want to talk about is functioning. And when I read this definition, it made me smile and think of a couple of memories that I have. And it says here, I want to do stuff, but it may not matter if I do it the same way as everyone else as you saw walking across. I got here and thank goodness for Christy. Functioning, so this brought up a memory, and these stairs are probably still somewhere in the center, I suspect. And I have fond memories of going up and down these stairs, and it was about learning balance and not falling and where to place my feet. And I would practice this, and it was something I didn't always enjoy because there's a bit of fear and it was hard work. Then one of my therapists looked at me one day and said, you know, or looked at my parents probably more than me and said, if Adam has a hard time getting down the stairs, he can go down on his bum. He can sit and go down. And you can go to the next one. It served me well my whole life because you wouldn't believe the number of people that would normally walk by you with their head down in the Montreal subway system that has incredibly deep stairwells. And they'll ask you, you know, do you need help? Do you want help? And I would say no, because I didn't want to trouble them. But it got me where I needed to go. And so that teaching of function doesn't always need to be what everyone else does. You just need to find your way of doing it. Really important thing I learned from 5 counties that I still try and hold on to today. Although as a 45-year-old in a working world, sometimes it's hard to remember those things. But that's always why it's important to come back to some of these lessons that I learned here. Another thing I remembered was Barb Purdy. Barb Marsh at the time was my physiotherapist, came to my grade 1 classroom. Vivid memory of this as well. See, in grade 1, I had lots of classmates, most of whom were girls, that loved to help me. And I was okay with this. They would go and get my lunch bag for me or go and get me the scissors or whatever it was so I wouldn't have to get up and walk to get them. And then Barb came one day, kind of ruined all that, probably for the better, but she told my class, told my class about CP and what I could and couldn't do, and then she says to them, if you're helping Adam, you're not really helping Adam. Because there's that idea of, don't do everything for Adam. Let Adam learn how to do things for himself because he can do them and he should do them the same way as you. Now we know it's not the same way, but similarly, he should be doing the same things. And so today, despite the fact that I lost the ability to ask my friends to go and help me with things, I'm thankful for Barb because that is that message that I've carried with me, that I have to be able to try things. And I'm saying this about me, but it has to be this. You have to be doing those same things for kids today. I'm sure you are, because you care about kids, because you care about what they can accomplish and what they can do. So I'm grateful for that. So then we'll move to the next one. And the next one involves really fitness, fun, and friends together, because at 5 counties for me, these things are linked. And those things include many experiences that I did have. Things like Winter Olympics days. I think that's at Queen Elizabeth, just down the road, in fact. And it was a luge path that we had to follow. And I remember having a bunch of 5 counties kids just having fun at the winter day. Then I remember swimming lessons at the old YMCA, fond memories of Bob Sinclair and Alex Cranfield and many others, convincing me that it was okay to jump in the water. Now, I know that sounds like a normal thing to convince a kid of, and it is. But you know, when you're somebody who's used to falling and who just spends all their time not wanting to fall, convincing them that it's safe to jump in the water and that it's actually good for balance and muscles to experience that and to control it is a good idea, but it's a hard thing to convince someone of. But I'm also thankful for that. Sports on Wheels days at Variety Village, Taekwondo programs that were run in partnerships with community partners were incredible. And thank you very much, Brandy, for doing the slides too, by the way. One of my nice memories, this is Lincoln Alexander, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario back in the 80s, first Black member of provincial parliament, if I'm correct. I got to meet him because it was at the Lieutenant Governor's Games. And the story goes that I was quite frightened about the starter's pistol because it was a loud noise and loud noises make me jump. I believe I negotiated Lincoln Alexander out of using the starter's pistol because I convinced him that every kid there with CP was going to jump out of their chair, fall down, and the race just wouldn't look good. So, and it worked. He used some other whistle or something. But I think there about the opportunity that 5 counties gave me to participate in these kind of events with peers and test out those opportunities to meet people like that. Canoe trips, back when insurance policies were a different thing, we used to go on canoe trips with 5 counties in the summers, many a summer on Rock Lake in Algonquin Park, one summer in Rock Lake in Algonquin Park, but we got back to the shore safely. I had my life jacket on. But even that was an experience in life, right? You know, reach for the paddle, but you're going to be okay. And 5, you got me out of the water, right? The people that were in those canoes. So 5 counties was there for me even then. And the picture with sledge hockey team, dear friend Dave Adams, who was my first coach for the 5 counties Blazers. Dave is likely looking at me right there saying, 2 hands, Mr. White, use 2 hands. Because being on a sledge hockey team was that opportunity for me to participate in a sport I loved and wanted to play. But it was also the chance to just work those skills and abilities still in a meaningful way that I needed to practice. He knew that I was going to favor my left hand. Some of you in the room still know that. And he wouldn't let me. He forced me to do my best and to become better through hockey. It was pretty amazing. Thank you. Then I want to touch on family for a moment, and I believe my parents are watching online, so I do want to acknowledge them. The title of this presentation is Looking Back to Dream Forward, but it was also going to be everything I needed to know I learned at 5 counties until I realized that that wasn't quite nice to my parents. So it's almost everything I needed to know about life I learned at 5 counties, and they did too. I just wanted to extend my gratitude for everything 5 counties did for my parents over so many years. First of all, helping them understand my diagnosis. Dr. Thame diagnosed me, and she walked them through what that meant. And then giving them the partner that was here at 5 counties to walk with them and help them learn. And then encouraging them to push me in the same way, like don't do everything for Adam. I thank you even for that, because that without them, I wouldn't be who I am, but without you, they wouldn't have been the parents that they are either, so I do appreciate that. There were late night visits to my place because my parents wanted to know how come my muscles got so tight at night. Therapists came to visit. Visits to sick kids when I was in surgery. invitations to mom to become part of the board of trustees and become chair of the board of trustees, just different ways you supported my family. And because of that, I was able to benefit from what they learned as well. So thank you to everyone who's involved in that. The next story is about the future. Now stay with me on this one. It's not a long story, but it has many, many winding paths to it. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see a very special moment in my life with a camper. Now this picture was taken at Northwood Easter Seals Camp, but stay with me. There's a very direct connection to 5 counties here. A very special moment where I helped this camper achieve something that she wanted to achieve. And that was juggling at our talent show. And I'll come back to why this was important. But it all started at 5 counties. So we'll go to the next slide. Summer of grade 9, 1993. It was part of an exercise group that took place in this very gym. And one of the people in that exercise group was somebody I had developed a crush on. And I found out that she was going to be volunteering at the day camps here at 5 counties. So I went to Janet Morrison, who at the time was the recreational therapist, and said to Janet, I really want to come and volunteer for this summer. I didn't tell her why. I suspect Janet figured that out on her own. I said, I really want to volunteer. She said, no problem. We'll set you up with the paperwork. We'll get all that figured out, and you'll come and volunteer. And it was great. I had the best time at this camp with these kids. You can go to the next slide, in fact, because that's a picture. Thanks, Bill, for the picture, by the way. Bill found that actually for us. With these kids, volunteering with them, doing different activities, helping them feel involved. And it kind of became addictive to the point where a couple summers later, I went to Marywood Easter Seals Camp and did the Leaders in Training program there. And I did this with the firm promise that I would come back to 5 counties and I would contribute all the things I'd learned to make the summer camp programs even better. Problem was I loved it at camp. Loved being a camp counselor. I loved that life. So with a little bit of guilt and shame, kind of turned my back on 5 counties for a few summers and got my first job as first a counselor and then as the life skills and leadership programmer at Northwood Easter Seal Camp near Kirkland Lake. Spent 6 summers at Kirkland Lake at Northwood. And one of my favorite programs to run there as the life skills programmer was something called the I Can't Funeral. And come across this in Chicken Soup for the Soul, first edition. If any of you have that on your bookshelf still, go read it, it's good. So we did this with the kids. We got the kids to say or write down all the things they couldn't do, or they felt they couldn't do. And then I think we burnt them actually. We had a campfire pit. But you'd bury them and you'd have a funeral and you'd say, dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to remember I can't had a lovely life and so on and so forth, but we're going to replace I can't with I can or I will try, things like this. So I did that. And one day, I think the next day, I was sitting with this camper's cabin mates under one of the trees that you see, having a conversation. And the camper said, you know, I really get frustrated because I can't skip with my friends at recess. So conversation went on, came up with an idea, went and got a giant out-tripping rope. And there's a picture that I can't find, sadly, but it's of me standing behind this camper, turning this big giant out-tripping rope. And we're skipping together. And I wanted to show her just that, you know, there's ways to skip. And she loved it. And I loved it even more, I think, to be honest, to open that door for this camper. And she went away, and that's the next summer, actually. You can go to the next slide. The next summer, she came back and wanted to juggle in the talent show. So here's both of us with hands that don't quite work the way we need them to juggle. So we had to practice and practice and practice and come up with cues and things to say to help her be ready to juggle and catch the ball and throw it back. And that's why I say it's one of the most special moments for me, because we accomplished it together. And I hope, again, it showed her that if you have someone there who believes in you and helps you, and it showed me, if you believe in someone and support them and use your creativity and flexibility, you can find ways to accomplish this. Guess where I learned that from? I learned it from 5 counties. I very much was copying people I knew here, my therapists. and all the wonderful professionals that I had seen do this very thing for kids all along. So I kind of got addicted to this and decided I wanted to do this for a living. And gosh, if they could even pay me to do this kind of work, I'd take it. I mean, they paid me for summer camp, but let's be clear, that wasn't going to work for a career. So that's what led me into education. And I can make a direct tie to 5 counties. Oh, and by the way, guess who never showed up for those summer day camps? Yeah, she never showed up. And yet, well, that person that I wanted to spend more summer days with didn't come. But my life's work is tied directly to that decision that I took to get involved. And 5 counties opened that door for me, and I don't know if it would have happened everywhere. So I'm eternally grateful to that moment and that time where 5 county staff believed in me and let me develop skills in a new way through volunteer work. Coming full circle then, in 2017 and 2018, I had the wonderful joy, and somewhat selfish if we're going to be honest, of bringing my class for events at the Smile Zone. I think one was the grand opening, and the other was a dedication of a new part of the Smile Zone. And I got to bring my class. Might have been because I convinced Dave that having kids there would be a good experience, mostly because I wanted to be there and because I wanted the kids to experience 5 counties. Part of that day was taking them to experience some of the therapy tools and toys that exist here that help kids. And I think it was neat for them to see that. And then they got to play hockey with the Pete's in the gym, which was really their highlight. But very meaningful experience for me to be able to have my students come and be in such an important place to me, a place that was transformative. So go to the next slide. And I want to even go more full circle because you saw the picture of my students standing in this gym. That's a picture of me standing with Barb Marsh at the time. Most of you would know her as Barb Purdy, retired physiotherapist from 5 counties, who was my physiotherapist for many years. And I started thinking about my philosophies as an educator. Why is it that I teach the way I teach, which I won't get into, but I will say it comes from that moment or moments like that. See, Barb made physiotherapy fun for me as much as she could. Turned it into a bit of a game. Met me with my interests. Barb gave me exactly the correction I needed. Clearly, I'm about to fall over. Let's pretend I did. So the next words out of Barb's mouth would have been, okay, we're going to try that again, but you're going to stand with your feet a bit wider apart. She would tell me exactly what I needed to do in order to correct that. But even more than that, it was the encouragement and the belief that I could accomplish it. And Barb, and then followed by Sharon and many others, number staff here, so I don't want to name Barb and not recognize the many others that also worked with me, and that you're doing the same thing today. But I became that teacher who holds those beliefs dear to my heart because of the example that I saw in staff here and the way you care for kids. So again, I don't even know how to begin to thank you. And those may look like little moments, right? Those are little moments in a treatment session. But just imagine how those little moments are just really setting that path forward for a child to become who they can be. So I want to walk us forward to when I became a member of the board of directors, which took a while. Dave Adams invited me to join the Government Relations Committee first, and I sat on there for about 3 years. And it was a small committee, but we did good work. I think his thought was, Adam can say a few things that'll convince politicians to give us more money. That was around the time there was the 10-year freeze, so clearly I'm sorry I didn't do a good job there. But it was neat to be a part of and experience that. And then Diane Pick started inviting me to join the board each year. And, I said, Diane, work's busy. I'm involved in a few other things. I don't think it's the right fit. Well, Diane would come back the next year. Adam, you can join the board this year, right? You're going to. Still busy, Diane. So it took about 3 years, but then Diane got me. She got me at the right time. I was in the midst of changing schools, and it was a good opportunity because I didn't really have to ask anyone or explain anything. I could go back to my other school and say, I'm on the board now, so I'll need to be going to meetings. No problem. So I joined the board, and I met some of the most wonderful people I could ever have imagined meeting. And most of them are in the room still today. And some have since left the board of directors because their time ended or they moved on to other things. But my time on the board of directors has just opened so many different experiences for me, not only to understand how 5 Counties works from a very high level, not only to understand the importance of really good policy, just setting programs and setting quality improvement plans and risk management, all those pieces that need to happen, the management team looks after and that the board oversees. But just meeting people with such amazing, diverse experiences and perspectives and ways of looking at life. And so I'm grateful to Diane for the chance to learn leadership in that way. And as I said, the time on the board of directors opened doors for me that I could have never expected. What do you do when people like Tony Doyle, whom you highly respect as a leader, looks at you and says, you know, you'd be a good school administrator, Adam. Schools need people like you. No, they don't, Tony. I'll just stay in the classroom and keep doing what I love doing with kids. And that's actually a like word for word conversation that I had with Tony. And then a group of us, including Christy and Julie and Andrew and Tony, went through the experience of searching for a new CEO. Because Diane, during my time as chair, chose that to be her time to retire. She rightfully deserved that, by the way. But Diane had such an impact on this organization that it was a huge task to start thinking about not only how do we replace Diane in terms of the impact, but what do we imagine going forward? And such a great opportunity to hear about visioning and leadership from the team around the table. And I just felt like the luckiest person in the world to hear those conversations. They asked me to chair that group, and I think it was mostly because I had the least to contribute in a very real way in terms of experience. I'd never been down a road like this. So for me, sometimes it was so fascinating just to hear those conversations about what we're looking for and what 5 Counties would need. And through all of that, and then meeting all of the candidates we interviewed and hearing their vision, and I got to meet some amazing people, including Scott, whom I'm grateful to have met, and hear all of those visions of leadership and hear their experiences and life journeys was incredible. And I think without that, there's not a chance I would have been ready to take any other steps in my career. I would have honestly left this job as a consultant, gone back to the classroom, and been very happy for the next however many years, 11, 12, 13, 14, however many I would work. But through the experience of working with these amazing people, and honestly trusting them more than I trust myself, I chose to take that step, and in September I'll be starting as a vice principal actually at one of our schools in town. Thank you for clapping now. I hope the stories I have to tell you, not that I will in a year from now, but I hope they would also be worthy of clapping then, because that's the uncertainty of taking that step. One of the things we instituted very early in my time on the board were blue sky discussions. Blue sky discussions being, if you can imagine a world with no limits, don't worry about limits on funding, limits on this or that, what would that world look like for 5 Counties? So I want to take a moment right now, since you've given me this opportunity quite graciously, to offer some blue sky ideas for 5 Counties going forward. I have no clue what the next 10 years are going to hold, but going back 10 years when I started on the board, I could have no clue either what the next 10 years were going to bring. So I humbly offer some thoughts to you that have come to me that might be helpful, and especially for my board colleagues, to consider. Again, not answers, just starting points. And the first one is invest in people and invest in learning. If I've done this properly today, I hopefully have shown you the impact that people at 5 Counties have had on my life and my family's life along the way. And it was the right people at the right time. And it could have been someone else. I've named names, but it could have been anyone. And I would have had the same impact on my life, because you have people here who care about kids and families. So no matter what, none of the magic that happens at 5 counties ever happens without people. So my number one thought is invest in people and make sure they can be their best, which is the second part, invest in learning. Science and the world around us is changing all the time. So everything we can do to make sure that the staff at 5 counties has as up-to-date training as possible, has as much knowledge as possible, and maybe most importantly, has as many opportunities to collaborate with colleagues throughout the province as possible, just to make sure the work here continues being the best work it can be. That'd be my first thought. My second thought is create conditions for accompaniment. Accompaniment is actually a big word in our school board. It's what our strategic plan is based on. But as I thought about the stories I was going to share today, the stories are all about accompaniment. They're all about being with people. And in some ways it's leading, it's using expertise to show different exercises or different ways of practicing that are going to help people. But as I've said, it's that flexibility. It's that creativity that comes. And that only comes with accompaniment, with getting to know people. And so on one hand, we want to help as many kids as possible. That's a given. More and more kids need more and more support, and we're learning more and more how to do that. But it needs to always be done in accompaniment. It needs to be done in that human way, both leading from the brain and the heart, if you will. And so every decision that gets made needs to create those conditions where that continues, just as it did for my family and for me. And my third thought then is culture, live it and challenge it. 2023 is a different world than 1979 when I first was carried through the doors of 5 counties. 2023 in Peterborough and Cobourg and Lindsay, Campbellford, Minden, and all the surrounding communities is a very different place. We live in a place where there's so much diversity and so much lived experience. And we've started this work and we continue it at a board level in terms of developing that equity, diversity, and inclusion planning. But always be in tune with the culture that is part of the world around us, because needs will and won't change, but how we meet those needs absolutely will change. And so making sure 5 counties is a place that is immersed in that culture around us, in all of the different cultures, through partnerships and communities, through listening to families' voices, through listening to staff voices too. We learn that culture and we help families and kids better that way. The challenging part though, is I want to tell you, we have never lived in a world that has been so accessible, that is moving toward being so inclusive in every way. And I love it. I'm so glad to be alive in 2023 in a world where we are called to be accepting and called to build partnerships with communities that are like ourselves and different from ourselves. At the same time, I worry because we've never lived in a world before where young people have so much pressure to appear perfect sometimes, right? When I was in school and I would get teased, and it happened to me in grade 9, I was called some awful things. I would go home, and the next time I would see those students, those classmates, almost say friends, but at that point you question that, was the next day. Kids today are going home and the friends are right there, and the pressure and the pictures. And I can tell you, growing up with a disability is not easy. Being a 45-year-old with a disability is not easy. It was one of my challenges in this role as a consultant, as I would walk into a school. Even if I felt like I had great things to offer, I had to convince myself through mental gymnastics that it didn't matter how I walked. Now I know it doesn't matter, but you know what? The pictures on Instagram and Twitter for kids are not on Twitter. Pictures on Instagram and all the other social media that isn't coming to my mind right now don't show that it's okay not to be perfect. And so at 5 counties, as you saw, as I walked you through these memories, maybe I didn't say it explicitly, but you taught me, and all those people you've heard me talk about, and many others have taught me that it's okay to be me. Always push myself to be better, but it's okay to be me. We need to keep doing that for our kids today and for our families today, because there are challenges out there that are not giving them that message that I worry about. Even though we live in a world that will be more accessible, that will be more open, and that will be more inclusive, because I see it in our kids too. We have great kids that are coming up that believe those things. At the same time, there's challenges there. So what are we going to keep doing at 5 counties to make sure that that message gets heard? I don't have that answer, but I desperately trust my board colleagues, management, and staff here to carry forward with that goal. I want to conclude today with this idea. It must have been like camera day at therapy session on that day. So Barb had me up on a roll. It was simple. Stay on the roll, throw the ball and catch the ball. That's all I had to do. Then Barb would start moving the roll just a little bit back and forth. What that did for me was it taught me that I could do many things. Taught me how my body worked. Taught me how to balance. Taught me that it was okay to fall. Especially when you had people there caring for you and encouraging you and getting you back up on the roll to throw the ball again. And if nothing else in my life, and there's plenty else, but if nothing else in my life, those are the things that have stayed with me and made me the person I am and helped me to be able to do these same things for kids. So from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of kids since 1975 who have been here and on whom you've had an impact, thank you very much and keep doing your amazing work. Unless I put my key up.
Well, thank you, Adam. That's a tough act to follow. I'm a little self-conscious after that impressive speech. So we appreciate that. We appreciate your honesty and your inspirational stories and being vulnerable in a room that can take it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And now we would like to continue a tradition we began 5 years ago at our AGM, our High Five Community Recognition Awards. These awards allow us to recognize and celebrate the people and organizations in our regions who share commitment to inclusion. They provide quality care, support, and service to our clients and families at schools, daycares, and in the broader community. These partners demonstrate that they are committed professionals who educate, encourage, and inspire. Can Scott please join me at the podium, please?
At 5 counties, specialized life-changing care is being provided for kids, youth, and families in our region. We certainly heard the testament to that from Adam, our keynote speaker, our dear friend, and one of our best 5 counties ambassadors. And Adam, he said, how can you, one of your lines that you just said is, how can you ever say thank you enough to 5 counties? Everything that you've done is thanked us well beyond anything. And it's your legacy will be lived many years to come. 5 counties couldn't do what we do without the important community support our valued community partners contribute. Today, we are pleased to honor some deserving individuals and organizations with our Community High Five Awards. And you see with our logo is the 5, it's the hand, and that's where we came up at. We thought we were quite clever. These awards are intended to recognize our partners who share our commitment to inclusion, education, and respect for all children and youth. These partners help us make a difference. We're pleased to acknowledge them now. So I ask that the recipients join me at the front of a room when I call their names, so we may present them their awards. And so our first award, nominated by Becky Evans, is presented to Nijki Wendita Anishinaabe Queequeg Services Circle. Angela Connors, Mishki Hai Kitukonkwe, and Rihanna can come join me. They are being recognized for their work in investing in quality through the Workforce Strategy Initiative for early learning and care, developing a training series for educators with a lens on justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion. This training was offered to the entire educator community in a virtual format and with once-a-month in-person communities of practice with designated Jedi advocates.
Justice.
These Jedi advocates took what they learned in these communities of practice forward into their workplace. Investing in quality has seen the impact of this learning in programs with children's, family, and team members in many positive ways. Thank you to this team in sharing their knowledge, passion, and kindness with us. Question.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, that's
Can I just get a volunteer to take a picture of us? The boss, my Angela, she couldn't make it, but she really wanted some pictures taken. Awesome. Jimmy,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, our next one was nominated by Laura Harrison and Amanda Connolly of our Lindsay team. Our next recipient is Maddie Tucker. Maddie is a registered early childhood educator and who works as part of the Infant and Child Development Program in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Maddie works tirelessly to support the families in Kawartha Lakes with their children's development. With a wealth of compassion, creativity, Maddie focuses on promoting collaboration with other community organizations. She makes families feel comfortable and often bridges gaps for families who would otherwise be unable to access critical developmental supports. Maddie is a credit to our organization, and we at 5 counties know that a family will be incredibly well supported when we know Maddie's involved. Okay. The next award was nominated by Carrie Halkilia and is presented to the Squishy Goose in Coburg. The Squishy Goose is a year-old company that provides an indoor play area for kids. They have shown commitment to inclusiveness by providing sensory-friendly play times and programs that support inclusion of all children. They have chosen partnerships with other community members to provide additional programming, such as art classes, that also ensure that any additional program is also supportive and inclusive of for all kids. The Squishy Goose, I saw some people here. I don't know if you noticed that, but they brought their own balloons.
I didn't bring balloons. Laura brought them.
Yes, excellent.
You know when your friend tries out, you're getting an award and she shows up with balloons?
Excellent. All right, high
Thank you
five.
so much. High five.
5 Counties, Shannon Cantoni has nominated Sandra Robinson of the City of Peterborough Children's Services. Sandra is the City of Peterborough's Children's Service Manager and has been a fierce advocate supporting quality childcare for all children in our community. Special needs resource funding is just one tangible way that Sandra has led our community in this area. As a community funder, Sandra has continued to exceed funding requirements to ensure that children in licensed early learning and childcare receive the supports they need to access care. This ongoing commitment has meant that all families can equally access the care they need to continue to go to work or school, regardless of any needs their family may have. This is in true inclusion at its finest. Sandra, will you come up? All right. Our next individual is the Northumberland Systems Navigator, Krista Mathers, was nominated by Alicia Dreyer, Elizabeth Carmichael of our Coburg Center. Krista is a strong advocate on behalf of the children and families she supports and collaborates with. And she collaborates with community partners to develop creative solutions and system challenges for complex client needs, always putting families first. And I have a little experience with this. These are some of the most challenging situations out there. And Krista's been a big help for us. She always treats clients, colleagues, and community partners with respect and dignity. 5 Counties would like to thank Krista for being a much needed voice for those who need it most. Krista. Our next recipient, Dawn Hurd at Point in Time, Halliburton, is being recognized by Sonia Kemp at our Peterborough location. Dawn is an outstanding community partner for our kids here at 5 Counties. She has been amazingly helpful in arranging appointments for parents, facilitating paperwork exchanges, and completion of paperwork for our families. Dawn is always eager to help, regardless of how busy she is, and goes above and beyond for every single client, and quite often, parents express their appreciation for her too. Dawn ticks all the boxes. She is friendly, helpful, efficient, and is totally invested, a real champion for our kids and their families. And Dawn is also the person, if you need to know anything about Point in Time, you call her.
You can take it, Bill.
Do you want to get the
You're the pro. No, let her go.
I know. Do you want me to make sure I bring it?
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Dawn, can you remain up here for a few more minutes? Darlene Callan, our Director of Clinical Services, has nominated Point in Time, the organization and community partner of 5 Counties in the Halliburton County for over 20 years. The management team has always been supportive of our center, our presence in the community, and as indicated by the many years we occupied their space in the Halliburton office. Over the past 3 years, with our presence in the community shattered due to COVID, we ended up having to, we had an office in the Minden Hospital, but due to COVID, we had to move. Point in Time, the Point in Time early intervention staff has kept us in touch in their attempts to collaborate with us to ensure children in that county are not lost or forgotten on wait lists. With our current location now being in Minden, the staff is creative in finding ways for families to access our services and support therapy recommendations. As we increase our presence once again in that community, we look forward to working closely with Point in Time early interventionists to ensure carryover with our families. Many thanks to this amazing organization for being such a collaborative community partner.
Thank
And we understand
I'll share this with the team. Barb says thank you, she couldn't be here.
yes, they have their EGM
We do
a little bit later tonight.
I have to go there after.
Okay. Our Northumberland team has nominated Leslie Banner, an intensive service coordinator and acting executive director for service coordination for children and youth. In her role, Leslie supports community service providers in working together to bridge service gaps and develop creative solutions so children and youth with extraordinary needs will have the access to the services they need. Leslie advocates for families throughout the regional resolution process when complex special needs funding is required and always makes herself available to consult with service providers, sharing her breadth of knowledge and experience. Thank you on behalf of Northumberland Social Work Team.
You got there.
Yeah. Our final recipient has been nominated by Laura Harrison and Amanda Conley. Please welcome Teresa Dumas. Teresa is one of our City of Kawartha Lake's greatest resources. Teresa works tirelessly to support families through her role as an early educator at Community Living. She is never afraid to dive in and often takes on a huge lion's share of the work to be done for coordinating for families. She is incredibly compassionate and builds strong bonds with her clients and families that she supports. She is also very creative and dedicated, and she is never satisfied until a successful solution to a challenge is found.
That can annoy people.
Let's go. Teresa is a joy to work with and brings so much value to clients' lives. She's a fantastic resource for the community, and we're happy to see her efforts recognized. Now I'll pass it over to Christy.
Well, thank you. Thanks again, not only to the recipients of the High Five Awards, but to so many in our community who help achieve our vision of building abilities for life. I would like to suggest that we take a short break, just 10 minutes or so, and reconvene for the business portion of our AGM. So that puts us back here at about 10 after 2. I would